shameless. United in the Europa League. Europa League. We tell them one time and we say Europa.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Yes, we're back for Europa League. That intro can only mean one thing. It's Europa League time. We're back for another Erik ten Hag press conference reaction. This time, the manager was joined by Christian Eriksen in front of the assembled media at Carrington to discuss Manchester United versus Sheriff this Thursday at Old Trafford. Yes. It was a good one. We've got so much to get into. I see people going, you're late. Owen, 32 minutes late. You're a disgrace. Well, Tank, we've got a very good reason why. Because you know what? I wanted to do. I don't know if you saw, if you watched the press conference from Carrington, you would have seen that the last question, the final question of the press conference was by our very own Flex. And he asked 3 questions to Christian Eriksen, 2 to Erik ten Hag, and they were so good. They were so good. And I'm not just saying this because obviously I know Fleck have got a personal relationship with him. They were so good. And the answers, I thought, from both Eriksen and the Manchester United manager were so good that I wanted to have that ready. I wanted to have that ready to share with you if you did miss it, to share with you from the perspective of Flex inside the media room at Carrington. So we've got it all ready for you. So that's why we're a little bit late. And I promise you, you know me, I don't give up promises too lightly. It is 100% worth it. So be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Plenty of content coming up over the next few days. Of course, Europa League, Premier League, the countdown to the World Cup as well. So we've got everything covered. And we're going to be going through all of the questions and answers from Christian Eriksen, from Erik ten Hag, to all of the assembled media there at Carrington. So don't you worry, we've got you all covered. Now, you know me, the way we usually, or certainly I like to format these press conference reactions, I like to do it in a very linear method, very calculated method. I like to ask the questions as they were asked in real time, but today we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit out of the norm, because of course, as I mentioned, Flex question was last, but we're going to reverse it. We're going to have the last question first, because I want to share with you Flex's question and the responses of both Eriksen and Erik ten Hag. So we've got them all ready for you. Let's take a closer look at Flex's question to the Manchester United manager and Manchester United midfielder, as well as their responses.
Hi everyone, welcome to our pre-match press conference for our game against Sheriff tomorrow. Who wants to get started?
Christian and Erik, if I may afterwards, you seem to have brought a great sense of composure and quality to our midfield since you've come. Where do you prefer to play? Do you prefer to play higher up in the final third, maybe as a 10? Do you like being in a 2-man pivot next to, say, Casemiro or McTominay or Fred at the base of a midfield? On a personal, where do you prefer to play in midfield?
I think I've always played in a bit of a different positions. I always start in one position and then I get moved around in the game. It's been like that in every club. So really, my thing has always been I would like to be wherever the ball is. And for me, it doesn't matter if I start as a 6 or 8 or 10. Doesn't really matter. It's more how the game's going and how I can be involved in the game. So I don't really have any preference. Just wherever the manager puts me.
And Erik, we've been really good in possession and building up. You look at the first 30 minutes against Chelsea, really dominant. As the coach, how do you get us to that next step of our development in terms of being clinical in front of goal? Is that more of a mental thing to get into the players? Is it more of a tactical thing?
It's both. But clearly in our attacking game, we have to develop, and it's also some really small details what makes a huge difference. We have to work on. And for instance, and I showed the team as well in that first half in Chelsea, we bring just 2 less people in front. So we had to push out more from the back. We had to do more investment to get players in front. And we were too neutral. We were actually too defensive to get the players there, because when you get numbers in the box of the opponents, obviously you have more chance to score goals.
And just last on Lisandro Martinez, he celebrated with a Manchester United fan at Old Trafford, which was an amazing moment. He did pick up a yellow card. We don't want too much of that. But is that exactly what you're looking for, that connection between the fans and the players and the passion just showing through and players just really feeling connected with the fans and the club?
We are united. And so it's on the pitch. And we want to have a good relationship. We want to get a fight in and that we fight together. And I think Licia really expressed that. I think always in his game, with his, I call it the grinta, what he's bringing in. So in every challenge, every duel, he gives everything he has. And I think the fans, they love it. Not every player is like that, but I think you need some players in your team who express that. And that gives, I think, also a really good connection with fans.
Yeah.
We are united, eh? We are united. What a response by the Manchester United manager. What a response from Christian Eriksen as well. Excellent questions by Flex, representing UV in there. Amazing stuff. I still have to pinch myself because I'm sitting here watching it, taking notes, preparing, getting the quotes together, etc., etc. And when they go Flex, United View, it still absolutely baffles me and it still blows my mind. It's just incredible. And it's because of you. It's because of your support. So honestly, guys, and that isn't just used sparingly. It really is because of all your support that we're able to be in those press conferences. So thank you, and shout out to Flex. So I thought they were really, really good questions. If you didn't hear them, so he first asked Christian Eriksen, where do you prefer to play? Do you prefer to play as a 6? You've played as a 6 at times for Manchester United this season. You've played as an 8. You've played as a 10. Where do you prefer to play? And Eriksen said, quotes, I've always played in different positions and get moved around in the game. My thing is always to have been where the ball is. I want to be where the ball is. It doesn't really matter. And I found that really interesting, actually, because we ourselves have had quite a few discussions here on the channel, haven't we, about what is Christian Eriksen's best position? He's been playing somewhat as a 6 in the game. I think he's sort of playing partially the role that Erik ten Hag wanted Frankie de Jong to play. Wanted to bring him in to play that sort of 6, that connector between the back 4 and the midfield and those attacking positions. But at times, as the game progresses, he ends up as an 8, or sometimes if Bruno's got to come off or if Bruno's got to be shifted to a wide position, sometimes Eriksen can end up as a 10. And we can even send Eriksen play as a false 9 in that first game of the season. And I thought Eriksen's answer was actually quite interesting because usually you do get the answer of, I don't really mind. And that's really what he gave. But at the same time, he said, I don't mind because I want to be where the ball is. I want to affect the game. I don't want to be in a position whereby I'm not getting involved in the game. I want to be involved. And I know that if I am involved, I can affect the game positively. And that's what we really see with Christian Eriksen. We say it all the time. This is a guy that he very rarely is a passenger in a game. He very rarely is someone you go, I tell you what, Eriksen just hasn't been able to get on the ball, because he makes sure he's going to be on the ball. If he's not on the ball in the position of a 6, he'll move himself around a little bit. He'll get a little bit further up the pitch to ensure I've got to get these touches. I've got to find these passes. And I found that really, really interesting to say, actually. So very interesting answer there from Christian Eriksen. Now, the questions directed towards Erik ten Hag is really being a big topic and talking point, actually, as well, after the Chelsea game and obviously in the Ammonia game where McTominay gets the late winner, and against Newcastle where it was 0-0 but we had chances to win the game, was about this discussion point of being clinical. How do Manchester United be clinical? And from Erik ten Hag's perspective, from a coach and a manager's perspective, how do you get that across to your players? Is it a tactical thing? Is it a technical thing where you have to coach your players on how to finish? Or is it more of a mentality thing? Is it a mental thing? And Ten Hag said, well, it's both. We have to develop, and small details at this level, at the highest level, they make a huge difference. And he mentions in great detail, this is what we've seen with Erik ten Hag, isn't it? If you ask Erik ten Hag a question about gossip or about people's future, and we are going to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, but if you ask him a question about injuries or drama, he won't really give you much of a response. He'll be very short and he'll be very sharp, and that's it, and somewhat of a waste of a question sometimes. Whereas if you ask him about tactics, if you ask him about football, he's a football guy. He's a football guy, and he responds to football questions. So when you ask him about tactics, he'll give you a really in-depth answer. And he spoke about Chelsea. He said in that first half against Chelsea, we had 2 less people in front. We had to push out more from the back and more investment. We had to make more investment to get the players forward. And if anything, he mentioned in those first 30 minutes, we were actually too neutral to get the players there. You have to push people forward. And that was really interesting to see. And it's always really interesting about seeing those tactical answers from him, because sometimes, again, press conferences can be surrounded more around the gossip or the clickbait headlines about players. And of course, there were going to be Ronaldo questions, and we're going to get back to them, or we're going to cover them certainly. But I thought it was really interesting for him to say that, yeah, obviously about being clinical, it's a tactical thing, but also it's a mental thing too. And we were too neutral in that first half, the first 35 minutes, where we were actually very happy with how we dominated the game. So I found that fascinating as well. And finally, when Flex asked about Lisandro Martinez, about his celebration, when he said, is that what you're looking for? And as he mentioned, we're united, eh? We're united. We want to have a good relationship. We fight together. Leacher always does this. Every challenge, every duel, he gives everything he has. The fans love it. You need some players in your team that can express that. And he's right, because not every player has that personality. Not every player has that mentality or that aggression. It's based on personality, really. Everyone's an individual and everyone's different. But what it does do, and what we have seen with Lisandro Martinez, is it's infectious. It's a domino effect. It spreads throughout the side. You're seeing it bring out those aspects of people's personalities that we haven't seen before. We see people like Varane, and we see people like Dallo, and even Shaw or Malacia when they're playing, or even in the midfield, people like Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro. It spreads throughout them. And that's why you need someone like that, like Lisandro Martinez in your squad. So shout out to Flex for some absolutely fantastic questions. It was just amazing to see, absolutely awesome to see. So what we'll do actually, by the way, guys, remind me, just in case I forget, because I'm known to, got a brain like a sieve. We'll play that again at the end, because I think those questions deserve repeating and those answers deserve repeating as well. So let's get to the rest of the questions. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. We've got nearly over 400 people watching, less than 100 likes. You know what it's like in these individual solo streams. You and I, we've got this connection. We're like Lisandro Martinez and the Manchester United fan base. We can do it. We've got to show that passion, that desire. So smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Remember, you can join the UB Members Club. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat as well. You get your badges, your emojis, your exclusive members only content, the back catalogue to UV Raw. More episodes coming soon. I know there haven't been any for a while, but they're coming soon, so don't you worry about that. As I mentioned, you can get your emojis, put them in the chat. You can put your Flex emoji. I think he's deserved it. I think he's earned it with those questions today. So get your Flex emojis in the chat right now. Let's get to the questions and the answers. First of all, this actually came after the press conference finished, actually, as they were leaving the room. I think it was Samuel Luckhurst who asked Erik ten Hag what the status was about Anthony Martial, and he said that Martial's still injured. So Martial's not available for tomorrow. Sunday, I guess he will be asked after the game Thursday at Old Trafford. He'll be asked about Anthony Martial, and if he's going to be available, I don't know at this point, to be honest with you, because ever since that Everton game, he was asked about when he's going to be available, and it was maybe, you never know, and every time it appears to be no. So I wouldn't hang your hat on Anthony Martial starting against West Ham, on Sunday, because there's no real evidence to say that is the case. I think at this stage, they are just taking their time. Whilst they've been different injuries, they haven't been the same injury going over and over and over again. I think it's a case of, as I mentioned, of just... he shouldn't go to World Cup. I've said that a million times now. He shouldn't go to the World Cup. He's got to use this as in my opinion, he's got to use it as another pre-season. He just needs to start again, essentially. He needs to start again. Any issues, fitness that he's having, figure them all out, and they need to wrap him in cotton wool. And he needs to be protected. I believe, from what I've seen before going live and what I've heard, he is in training today, not with the group, individually. And I think they'll do with him like they did with Rafael Varane. I think he'll be individual training. I think he'll be built up very, very slowly, because we can't have this happening over and over and over and over and over again. So I think that's going to be the case. So let's get into the first question of the press conference. Let's just see what the chat's saying. I have control over these ones as well. Ed T says, Lisandro Owen. I don't know if it works. Although the amount of... I'm not a butcher, but you know me. I'm a carnivore. I am Kang says, everyone like the video to support the channel. Absolutely. Raymond says, big up UV, best fan channel. Watching live from Bermuda. CR37 out. Oh, wow. I thought it was a positive one. I didn't read the rest of it. And FA says, Flex asked the best questions, and I'm saying that unbiased. Flex asked some real good questions as well, and that's not shade towards anyone at all. It's just I thought he did an excellent job, and it's not biased either. Right, let's get into the questions. Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, he was going to be asked about Cristiano Ronaldo, and as has been the case the whole time, with the whole Cristiano Ronaldo situation is I feel like Erik ten Hag handled it and has handled it and is handling it excellently, as well as can be. The first question was, is there an update on Cristiano Ronaldo? Will he be involved? And also, is there an update on the Rafael Varane injury? Erik ten Hag said, quote, yes, Cristiano will be in the squad tomorrow. Rafa Varane isn't. He will be out until the World Cup. The follow-up question was, can he play in the World Cup? Ten Hag said the prognosis is we have to wait and see how it develops, but he said he thinks so. That has been the report that's been put out there. I think it was L'Equipe, or certainly French-based journalists were told or reporting just 24 hours, 48 hours after Varane sustained the injury against Chelsea last Sunday. The general consensus was it's not as bad as first thought. He's going to be out of action for 3 to 4 weeks. It was a hamstring issue, and the hope was that he would still be involved in the World Cup squad, and the hope was that he might miss maybe just the first game in the group stage for France, but he would be able to participate and play in the tournament, which of course personally for him is great. I mean, it's great to know that he can go to the World Cup, because the guy was in tears. I mean, he looked absolutely rock bottom. The team had to console him, and it's horrible to see that happen for any player. And we know his history of injuries as well. So it's great news that he can play in the World Cup for France. Of course, it's not great news for us that we're going to miss him for this next block of games, and that's what Ten Hag said, that we're going to miss him now. He's not going to play before the World Cup. My only concern about that, and I think this is from a selfish point of view, is that every time he goes on international duty anyway, we're worried because he gets injured a lot on international duty. So with him going in to an international block of games already with an injury, knowing that he picks them up anyway on international duty, and I don't know what French's medical team is like or how they manage his fitness. I would argue it's not as well as Erik ten Hag and Manchester United have been handling him this season. You do worry about, is this going to mean that this injury, which initially kept him out for 3 to 4 weeks, is going to be made worse because they push it when they shouldn't? That's the concern. That's the worry about that. So, again, I'm glad that he's going to be available, seemingly, but you do have this just gnawing thing at the back of your head of, is it going to then really cost us as the season goes on? But I'm glad that it's not too bad, because, again, you don't want to see any player miss out on the World Cup. And there were quite a few questions based on the World Cup, which were quite interesting from Ten Hag as well. So the follow-up question was, explain the conversation with Cristiano Ronaldo. Was it any issues? Was it difficult to have that conversation? And Ten Hag said, it's not difficult. We answered all the questions. He was out for 1 game and he's back in the squad now. And everything is as usual. And that's all I really have to say on the matter. We've spoken about it enough. So, of course, and this is where I think Erik ten Hag did a great job with this, because if he had just rolled over and accepted that he was going to answer every single question about Cristiano Ronaldo, then every single question would have been about CR7. If he didn't put his foot, or draw his line in the sand, as it were, put his foot down and say, I'm not answering any more questions about Ronaldo, this entire press conference would have been about Ronaldo. So he answers those first 2 questions about Ronaldo. Next question, I forget the journalist, I don't want to call him out, but the journalist then said, I've got to ask again, sorry, and Ten Hag just cut him off. He didn't even ask the question. He said, no, I will not answer any more about Cristiano Ronaldo. All questions we covered last week. We have to focus on the game tomorrow. Let's focus on that. That's it. And that's what you have to do. If you give them an inch, sometimes they'll take a mile. That's how it works. That's the press conference game. That's the media game. That's the journalist's job, ultimately. Ronaldo sells. Ronaldo gets clicks. Ronaldo gets attention. But from Ten Hag's perspective, what else does need to be said, really? He said it all. There was a statement. He didn't train with the squad. He didn't play. He's back training with the squad. He had a conversation. He said he's going to be back tomorrow. He's probably going to be a start. That's probably going to start. That's it. There doesn't really need to be more to be said. And if he allowed those questions to be about Cristiano Ronaldo, then we all know what the game is. The game sometimes is, can you slip the manager up? And so far, he hasn't slipped up on any questions to be asked. And he said, I'm not going to answer any more. So either, basically, you ask other questions. I've got a player next to me, ask him questions. But if you ask about Ronaldo, this is going to be very short and very boring. You're not going to get anything else. So he pushed it back straight away. And I think he did absolutely a fantastic job with that. As I mentioned, as I think how he's handled every single flashpoint about Ronaldo, I think he's handled it well. So credit to Ten Hag. So the follow-up question was about Ronaldo's return to training, how he settled with that. And he said, it's done. He's back. We're focusing on the game. That's important. The follow-up question to that was about other injury recoveries. Is there any positive news? We've seen a couple of people return recently about, Harry Maguire, Donny van de Beek, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Ten Hag said, quote, "They are all in training. Harry, Donny, Aaron, all training in preparation for tomorrow." When asked if they would be available for tomorrow, because realistically they've only started training with the group once again, I think yesterday was when those pictures came out. Prior to that, they had been on the grass for, I think, a week or so, 10 days or so. But that had been individual training, hadn't been with the entire first team. So when the question was, are they going to be available for tomorrow? He said, after training, we'll speak to medical and then we'll take a decision. So I don't know. We could see certainly Maguire play tomorrow. Donny, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, we could all see them play tomorrow or have a part. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think that if anyone out of them was going to start, it'd probably be Maguire. And I think given the longevity that he's been out for, because he's been out for, what is it now, 4 weeks? I mean, when was the last international? It's about 4 weeks or so, I think. Maybe a bit longer than that. So, and he only really returned to group training yesterday. I think it would be too early for him. So I still think we'll see Martinez and Lindelof tomorrow as a centre-back pair. And I don't expect to see Maguire, but I expect to see him on the bench. And look, people can talk about Maguire not liking him and him not being good enough or him not being right for the captaincy at Manchester United, and they're all completely, perfectly valid criticisms, but it's clear that certainly at centre-back now, we are short. We're not going to have Varane for this next block of games, and we're light. We're light in those positions. If something happens to Martinez or Lindelof, we'd be in trouble. I don't suspect that Maguire comes back in and suddenly it's Maguire and Martinez, because I think Lindelof and Martinez have actually done well together in Europe and in the Premier League. I thought Lindelof did okay when he came on. So I don't suspect it's going to be a case of Maguire back, so suddenly he's going to be starting every single game. No, but we are going to need it for the backup. No doubt about that. And look, the same goes with Wan-Bissaka. Even though that Erik ten Hag's clearly made his decision, Wan-Bissaka isn't his guy. Diogo Dalot cannot play every single game. He just can't do it. And I suspect that Erik ten Hag's going to try to play him in most games. Maybe the time that Wan-Bissaka does start is against Aston Villa in the EFL Cup. Apart from that, Dalot's going to play every game because every games are pretty important right now. Donny, he's going to be an option off the bench. It's unfortunate for him because I think in this period of time that he has been out injured, he might have actually had some game time, particularly in the Europa League, but he was out of action. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to Donny, but it's good to have these names back, certainly. The follow-up question was about Harry Maguire, saying obviously for England fans and the England manager, they want to know how much is he going to play between now and the World Cup. Will he have an important role before the World Cup? Ten Hag said he has a role to play. He's on his way back and now has to get back into these games. So again, look, when you bring up Harry Maguire, that you know the reaction it's going to get. We know the reaction it's going to get, and he even at one point said that he was an excellent player and all that kind of stuff again, because he backs his players. That's what he does. He backs his players, and that's just it. The follow-up question was, some people will be looking to the World Cup. Will he be getting enough minutes prior to then? And Ten Hag said, I understand the interest, but from our perspective, we only look at Manchester United. It's about getting the results and the performances. That's the main objective I look at. I don't consider people's international minutes. I don't consider, or England need him to have match rhythm. I don't consider that. I just consider, all I consider is Manchester United, and all I consider is winning the game. So, as I mentioned, I think Maguire will have a part to play between now and then. But in reality, if Martinez and Lindelof are doing really well, he's probably just going to be on the bench, because Ten Hag doesn't really like to rotate. That's it. He doesn't really like to rotate that much, especially if the team's doing well. He likes continuity. He likes the team, if they're playing well and they're winning, to maintain that. Again, I don't think Lindelof played badly when he came on. I thought the team defended very well. Ideally, it'd be Martinez and Varane. That's not the case. So we need an extra... we need a backup in that situation. So there you go. We've got a super chat in from VK. Says, no Maguire. Where's Axel, by the way? He did say in a previous press conference, Erik ten Hag, that Axel Tuanzebe wouldn't make it until after Christmas. He was on his way back, but he didn't expect Tuanzebe to be back prior to Christmas. He said the hope would be that he would be back, maybe training with the first team before then. But ultimately, I think the same with Tuanzebe is the same as Brandon Williams. I think it's a case of getting them fit to move them on in January. Had they been available for selection in the summer. Had they been fit in the summer, they would have gone. I mean, Tuanzebe was on the tour, wasn't he? For I think it was one game. It was one game. Then he went home. So I think that if Axel and Brandon are available in January, if they're fit, then they'll probably go. Whether they're loans, whether they're permanent transfers, they should be permanent. Ultimately, they're not at the level for Manchester United. But again, I think the focus for them will be just get them fit and then move them on in January. Speaking of January, good segue there. Jamie Jackson asked Erik ten Hag, do you have funds for signing in January or did you spend most of it in the summer? Ten Hag said, quote, in this moment, we focus on the games. In the background, we also continue and are working on the squad. You always examine how you can improve. That is what we'll do. Essentially saying, we're always working on the squad. We want to live in, this was a really good quote from him. We want to live top sport culture and we're always looking to how to improve. I would be really surprised if we did big business in January, and big business for a January transfer window for a top 6 side is basically spend a lot on one player or have somewhat of a winter marquee signing. Historically, United don't tend to do it. Of course, there are outliers, Bruno Fernandes, Nemanja Vidic, Patrice Evra in the same window. But even at the time, I don't think anyone expected them to have the influence and the impact that certainly Vidic and Evra had. But historically, United don't tend to do it that much. That could change dependent on the Ronaldo situation. Clearly, if he does have his contract mutually terminated, we'll have to get a striker in January because we're light anyway. And even if we keep Ronaldo, we should really be looking at a striker in January. If we don't get one in the January transfer window and Ronaldo stays, certainly summer, that's going to be a priority. No doubt in my mind about it. But he's not ruling it out, but he's also not saying yes. It was a very sort of wish-washy answer saying, well, we always are looking. He didn't say, well, we've got funds. I suspect, and this is just me speculating here, but I suspect that there isn't a ton of money left. We overspent in the summer, and I think we dipped into what budget might have been there for January. Of course, Manchester United could spend if they wanted. There's a difference here. Manchester United have the facilities to spend, but in terms of the budget, in terms of what the Glazers have signed off on United spending, I don't think that will happen. Maybe, again, Ronaldo's departure, even if it's a free transfer, frees up a lot of money wage-wise, and you can maybe balance that out into getting a January transfer, or you take money out of the summer budget. But I don't suspect that. I would suspect that if we did buy someone in January, I think it would probably be a right back. We need to buy a right back because, again, we don't have one. We literally got Dalot and that's it. Wan-Bissaka's coming back. So I don't know. So again, it was kind of a bit wish-washy there from Erik ten Hag. We didn't confirm, neither deny. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. We've got nearly 600 people watching. How many likes do we have right now? 165. Oh, I'm glad I'm sitting down. I could pass out. I couldn't. That would make a terrible stream and you'd all be very worried. But we can do better. So smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. We're on the road to 125k. I think we're I want to say less than 500. I might be wrong. But we're well on the way to 125k. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe as well. Bottom right-hand corner. Next question was from Adam from United Stand. Big up, Adam. Great to see, as I mentioned, Flex questions, Adam's questions, or whether the guys from Stretford Paddock are ever in there, which they are. I saw them before during the pre-season tour. It's always great. It's always great to have non-traditional media, people in there asking questions, and I think that hopefully, that's the way going forward because I think, media like life evolves, isn't it? So it's great to see anyone in there asking questions to the manager, the players, or anything like that. So big up to everyone that gets in. So his question was first to Christian Eriksen, saying you've been at the club for the last few months. Have you felt any added pressure in games, or is it different to any other club? And Eriksen said, well, the pressure in the game is the same. Football matches are full of pressure, and the pressure is the same. The pressure from the outside, maybe the scrutiny is bigger, but the football is not. Was then asked, is the pressure from the fan base, is that increased because of what happened last season, with having the worst season that Manchester United had ever had in the Premier League? Was that, was that part of an added pressure? And Eriksen said, well, I wasn't here last season, so I can't really answer that. He said the Chelsea game, the fans, we heard them in the game. We wanted to get the win. We were disappointed to be 1-0 down. As a footballer, you don't want to lose any games, and the fans are a big part of it. And finally, he was asked, fitness-wise, are you feeling sharp now? And Eriksen said he indeed was. So Eriksen back to full fitness. And obviously, I think when it comes to the pressure, and this kind of, I think what Ericsson was touching on really is that there's always pressure. There's pressure for any club, especially at this level. There's always pressure in the game. That's what football is. That's what sport is at an elite level. As far as scrutiny, and I think that's the better phrase, the better term, scrutiny, absolutely, it's increased at Manchester United. It's always going to be the case, more so than probably any club he's ever been at, whether it's Ajax, whether it's Tottenham, whether it's Inter Milan, and they're all massive clubs and they all have huge fan bases and they all have their own version of scrutiny. But Manchester United, it's another level. But I clearly he's able to deal with that. Next question was from Samuel Lucas from the Manchester Evening News, asked to Eric Ten Hag, saying, Facundo Palestri, Facundo, you're likely to go to the World Cup. He is, but he hasn't actually made his official Manchester United debut. I couldn't believe that when he said that, but is he going to be an option for the squad? Ten Hag said he was injured for a long period, bad injury, sustained it against Atletico. He is now returning, so we have young players in the offensive positions in the background. They have to battle to convince me they deserve to be in the team. And I think you can use that answer to a lot of young players. And that kind of, I think, it applies to a lot of young players. And we've spoken about it quite a bit. And you see it on social media a lot, don't you? Of when is he going to play the youth? When is he going to play the younger players? Bring on Garnacho. Bring on Zidane Iqbal. You played Charlie Savage in the pre-season. And what he's really saying there is that they're in the background. Of course, they're not the priority players, and they have to show me something. They have to battle to convince me they deserve to be in the team. They have to battle in training. They have to show me something in training or in the under 21s games that they do play in. They have to show me in that. And then once they do get that opportunity, which is still coming, and it probably will be brief, it probably will be a 5-minute cameo or a 10-minute cameo, you've got to affect the game. And if you do get an opportunity whereby we're really light because of injury, you have to take your chance. That's what football's about. It's about luck, especially for a young player. It's about luck. It's about opportunity. It's about being in the right place at the right time. And it's about battling to convince that they deserve to be in that side. Anthony came on at the weekend, and I would think that he really gave the manager something to think about. Schatzi wasn't playing well, but I thought that Elanga played well, and maybe he could start now. But of course, they need to be in that have that opportunity first. The issue also is as well, I suppose, for Ten Hag is he doesn't have that game to really start them in or really bring them on. Every game has been so important and so pressure. We haven't had a game where we've ever been comfortable, like 3-0 up, I can bring them on. That hasn't happened. Even in those Europa League games, there has been, we can't slip up because we've already slipped up already. It's going to be tight. We can't slip up tomorrow. We know he's not going to make a lot of changes tomorrow. He's going to play a really strong side. And I guess that prevents sometimes from those younger players to coming on. I would suspect they might play in the EFL Cup game. They're not going to I don't think they'll play in the Europa League because, again, tomorrow we've got Sheriff, which again is, you would think it's an easy game, but we saw how much we struggled to put the ball in the back of the net against Ammonia, and we played a strong side there. And after that, it's that Real Sociedad game, which is the one. We have to win it. And on top of that, we have to win it more than just 1-0 because the goal difference works on those head-to-head games. So we can't even go there and just win 1-0, and our goal difference isn't as good as Real Sociedad. So we have to go there and get goals. So that game isn't a given either. So I would think their opportunity probably comes at the EFL Cup game, to be honest with you. Next question was, again, I think from Samuel Lucas, asked to Christian Eriksen about his partnership with Casemiro. And Eriksen said, quote, we like playing together. We are still getting to know each other on and off the pitch. He's a nice guy. You can see on the pitch his value. He's been doing this for years, so I'm not surprised he can cope. He's got great football knowledge, and as he mentions, he's been playing games like this, with this scrutiny, with this pressure, for a really long time. So it shouldn't be surprised that come the big games, he delivers. Big game Miro, as I like to say. And it's true. Again, there was speculation. There was a bit of doubt about maybe his ability on the ball. And I still do think that's valid. I still do think that's there. I don't know if it was just a case of match rhythm. I don't know if it's a case of him having to quickly adjust to the Premier League, that you're just not going to get that extra couple of seconds that you might in the other leagues. But when it matters, and I think this is where someone like Casemiro is just going to be gold dust for us this season. When it matters, in the big matches, against top six sides, he is invaluable because Casemiro has proven at Real Madrid in Champions League games and El Clasico games and cup finals, when it matters, he is up for it. And you saw his celebration at Stamford Bridge. That's what it means. Nobody can doubt what it means to Casemiro. He hasn't come to the Premier League or come to England because he just wants the money. He wants to play, and he feels like he can contribute, and he absolutely can. And Flex touched on it when he asked his question about the attitude and the passion of someone like Lisandro Martinez. Someone like Casemiro's got it as well, absolutely. So it's fantastic to see. I still do think he'll get caught out in some games, and he might be a bit sloppy on the ball. But he's no doubt going to be important for us. You don't buy someone for 70 million and then him not play. So I think, and going back to his time out of the team earlier on this season, it was justified. It was justified because McTominay was playing well and Casemiro was taking a bit of time to adapt. But now it was seemingly that he has adapted. Ericsson was then asked, do you see a lot more coming from this team? Ericsson said, quote, yeah, I do. I also have a feeling the fans are feeling it. You can see the development in the games. There has been a bit of a rising. We are starting to believe, but there are things we can do better. We are on the right path. And I totally agree. I totally agree with Christian Eriksen there. Certainly my perspective, I can't talk for every fan, and I never will, because that is a ridiculous thing to say. You can never talk for an entire fan base. Everyone has different opinions, different perspective. That's what's football's so great. It's about topic, and it's about debate, and it's about opinion, and it's about discussing that in a respectful manner. But I myself, as a fan, am absolutely starting to feel an improvement in Manchester United's game. The last 3 or 4 games, you can see it. You absolutely can, and that's why I kind of pushed back a little bit on the Roy Keane. I don't want to say criticism, but maybe sort of the phrasing of how he mentioned, Erik ten Hag's got to win games and Manchester United are 5th in the league. But at the same time, you'd hold up our recent run of fixtures and our results against anyone in the league. We've played more top 6 clubs than anyone else. We've played I think it's something like in our first 11 games, there's only been 1 team that's in the bottom half or 2 teams in the bottom half. It's ridiculous. I can think of Southampton and Leicester. We've had really challenging and tough games. And particularly after that first 2 games, which was a nightmare, the last 9 games, it's 6 wins, 2 draws, 1 defeat. That defeat came against Manchester City. And we're starting to put performances to results as well now. So I absolutely agree that there's improvement. There's still a way to go, clearly. But now you would actually be hoping in this build-up to the World Cup and afterwards, we're going to have a run of games against the teams we are expected to beat, and we've got to make that count, absolutely. Now, when asked about how far behind people like City and Arsenal we are, Christian Eriksen said, well, they've been together for a long time, they've had managers for a long time, but we need to show consistency, stay up there. We need to show consistency before we can compare to them, and it's right. It absolutely is right, because obviously, because we're Manchester United, we're always going to be compared to those bigger teams in the league because the expectation is high, as it should be. But at the same time, when you compare to a City or an Arsenal, they've had managers there. That Mikel Arteta has been there for 3 years. Pep Guardiola's been there for 6 years, coming on 7 years. And their group of players has played together for a long time. The manager's had significant time to get across his ideas. If anything, it's incredibly impressive for someone like Erik ten Hag, who's only been at the club 3 months or so, that he's starting to be able to get across his ideas, the way he wants to play, amid quite a lot of background noise. There have been numerous incidents and numerous setbacks that he's been able to deal with and deal with it well. So again, I think the manager has to have a ton of credit for that. No doubt in my mind about it. Next question was about Maguire to Erik ten Hag. Has this breakaway with his injury, has it helped him? And Ten Hag said, well, it's always about performance and presentation. When he's acting like that, it's no problem. He's a great player with great capabilities. And of course, when he says that, you can hear people go, no, he's not, no. But he's always going to back his players, no doubt about that. This was a really interesting question to Christian Eriksen, saying that at this stage, when you're, 3 weeks away from the World Cup, just a minor injury. A minor injury affects the possibility of going to the World Cup, and it could dash your World Cup dreams. Is it hard to focus? And Eriksen said, well, not really. For every footballer, it's the same. We are focused on the next game. So it's not really too much to focus on, which, look, I think it's probably somewhat of not a lie, but I think that he's always going to say that. Clearly, it's in the back of every player's minds of what's going to happen to me. But I think at the same time, it's like you're always taught when you're younger, when you go into a tackle. If you go into a tackle half-hearted, you're going to get hurt. And it's the same way of going into a game. If you go into a game trying to avoid an injury, chances are you're probably going to get an injury. And at this stage, you just have to hope that luck is on your side, and you have to hope that you play well and you don't get hurt. And footballers, a lot of the time with this schedule, are always carrying knocks anyway. So it's about best managing yourself, I would think. Now, Eriksson was then asked, the club has made a spectacular recovery from the start of the season. What has changed in the last few weeks? The manager's known as a disciplinarian. Has that been part of the reason why? Eriksson said, I think we started believing what we are doing on the pitch. The 1-0 wins gave us a lot of confidence. I think that is a bit of belief. He wants us to do stuff and we try and do that. Of course, in the game as well, you have to make your own decisions. And that's important too, which I think is so key what he said at the end there. It's so true that sometimes as players as well, yes, it's important to follow the manager's instructions. Yes, it's important to follow the game plan, which United players don't do enough or haven't done enough in the last couple of years. But at the same time, you can't rely on hearing everything from the coach on the sideline. You have to be a big enough pro to make those bigger decisions on the pitch and react in the right way. And that's really important. Eriksson was then asked, some people, not the journalist in question, which got a bit of a laugh, but some people thought you might have been a squad player when you were signed in the summer. Did you expect to have the impact that you've had? And Eriksson said, yes. I didn't want to come here and sit on the bench. I did see my qualities to play. So yes, I did expect to have an impact. And good. You shouldn't come to Manchester United with the expectation of I'm going to sit on the bench. You shouldn't come to United and believe you're not going to play. It's part of the problem with Ronaldo. But that's the good point. You don't get to that level. You don't get to play for Manchester United if you believe that you're not good enough, or I'm just going to come and help out. No, of course you believe you can play. And again, I think that's part of that was people writing him off was what happened to him in Copenhagen last year, which I think is ridiculous. You can't define someone on the worst part of their career. You should define them on the comeback. You should define them on what they're doing right now. It's always been about what have you done for me lately, and you're only as good as your last match, and that's the case with Christian Eriksen. So I think he's been a revelation at Manchester United. He was then asked, did you expect all of the players? Obviously, you were one of several to be brought in the summer. Did you expect all the clubs to players to take the club to the next level? And he said, we are starting to feel a connection. It's a good squad, but I didn't pick any of the other players. You'll have to ask him, Ten Hag. He did well with the Manchester United signings, which is true, absolutely. And Erik Ten Hag then, also, by the way, guys, actually, because I'm flying through these questions, I got so into answering those questions. It's like I'm there. Be sure to smash a like on the like button because I noticed we have nearly 700 people watching. Just over 200 likes. We can get to like 300, 350. I believe in you. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. I'll see what you guys are saying in the chat as well. Ed T says, still waiting for the flip-flop emoji for those who had the CAS agenda. Ooh, the flip-flop emoji. I'll have to make a note of that because I think that's excellent. Emma Kay says, it's something people made up, though, that Eriksson was only a bit part player. It was just a weird narrative, wasn't it? It was a weird narrative. Again, I think it's because it was a free transfer, his age, but he's been an absolute revelation, hasn't he? Erik Ten Hag was asked about Varane, saying you've seen the reaction to Varane's injury last week. Is that playing on people's mind? Do you have a message to those players? And Erik Ten Hag said, well, yes, it might play on their minds, but the focus is so important. The risk, if you're not focused on the game, the risk of getting injured is even more. It's important that they keep the rhythm for form and performance. It gives you a better chance. We are also here in the season. It's an important block of games. We want to be number one in the group, which keeps us out of an extra round, which means less games in February, which will already be a busy month. Also for the league, we have to get in the right position in the league. We want to win every game and win every trophy. He was then asked, do you not have then the luxury of resting players? Something that international managers may want you to rest players ahead of the World Cup. And Ten Hag said, I think that is the wrong idea. They only have 1 week and then the World Cup starts. You have to keep the right fitness, the right shape. It's not optimum, but that is something the national managers have to deal with. And as he mentioned, it's a different kind of World Cup. Something managers are clearly going to have to deal with anyway. And I agree with him. I do agree with what he's saying there, where essentially he's saying, look, if anything, it wouldn't even be optimal to leave these players out at this point because they need to be playing. They're not going to have that time with the squad. They're not going to have a big of a break anyway. So realistically, what you do want at this point in time is for them to go into the game with a good sense of match rhythm and good sense of form. If you're a player, the way to think about it isn't, oh, I'm going to get injured if I play all these games. The best way to think about it is, let's play myself into form. So when I do come to the World Cup, I'm at the top level and I'm ready and I can absolutely smash that tournament. I think that's the smart way of thinking. And I think Erik Ten Hag is absolutely right with that. So Erik Ten Hag, I believe, was correct in that matter. And of course, the final questions were from our very own Flex. Of course, we played them at the beginning of the video, but I do want to play them again because they were just so good. So of course, here's what Flex had to ask Christian Eriksen. Here's what he had to ask Erik Ten Hag as well as their response. Let's take another look.
Hi everyone, welcome to our pre-match press conference for our game against Sheriff tomorrow. Who wants to get started?
Christian and Eric, if I may afterwards, you seem to have brought a great sense of composure and quality to our midfield since you've come. Where do you prefer to play? Do you prefer to play higher up in the final third, maybe as a 10? Do you like being in a two-man pivot next to, say, Casemiro or McTominay or Fred at the base of a midfield? On a personal, where do you prefer to play in midfield?
Yeah, I think I've always played in a bit of a different positions. I always start in one position and then I get moved around in the game. It's been like that in every club. So really, my thing has always been I would like to be wherever the ball is, and for me it doesn't matter if I start as a 6 or 8 or 10. Doesn't really matter. It's more how the game's going and how I can be involved in the game. So I don't really have any preference, just wherever the manager puts me.
And Eric, we've been really good in possession and building up. You look at the first 30 minutes against Chelsea, really dominant. As the coach, how do you get us to that next step of our development in terms of being clinical in front of goal? Is that more of a mental thing to get into the players? Is it more of a tactical thing?
It's both, but clear in our attacking game we have to develop, and it's also some really small details what makes a huge difference we have to work on. And for instance, and I showed the team as well in that first half in Chelsea, we bring just 2 less people in front, so we had to push out more from the back. We had to do more investment to get players in front, and we were too neutral. We were actually too defensive to get the players there, because when you get numbers in the box of the opponents, obviously you have more chance to score goals.
And just last on Lisandro Martinez, he celebrated with a Manchester United fan at Old Trafford, which was an amazing moment. He did pick up a yellow card, we don't want too much of that, but is that exactly what you're looking for, that connection between the fans and the players and the passion just showing through and players just really feeling connected with the fans and the club?
We are united, and so it's on the pitch, and we want to have a good relationship. We want to get a vibe in, and that we fight together. And I think Licia really expressed that. I think always in his game with his, I call it the grinta, what he's bringing in. So in every challenge, every duel, he gives everything he has. And I think the fans, they love it. Not every player is like that, but I think you need some players in your team who express that. And that gives, I think, also a really good connection with fans.
Yeah.
So there you go. We are united, eh? What a perfect way to end it. So shout out to Flex for some great questions, great responses. Shout out to all of you. As I mentioned, we wouldn't even be in those press conferences without your support. So really appreciate all of you taking the time to watch the videos, interact with them, subscribe to the channel, like them all that kind of stuff. Leave a comment, you name it. All of your support is really just why we're able to be in those press conferences. So we really do appreciate it. I appreciate you joining me for these press conference reactions. You know me, I love doing them, and I love that you join me as well. So be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Plenty of exciting stuff coming in the next couple of days, of course. Flex was at Carrington today, so expect the match preview very soon. I believe it might not be up at the channel at the moment, or it might be. You can go and see that video in its full form. The press conference question in its full form on the channel at some point if it's not up already. And of course, as I mentioned, it's match day tomorrow, so you get the full match day experience. Match view, kickoffs at 8 o'clock, so we'll be live at 7:30, and we'll have fan views, obviously from inside UVHQ and outside Old Trafford as well. So you don't need to go anywhere. Now's the time to subscribe. Click the notification bell, you're notified when we go live or a video gets uploaded. I'm out of here. Have a good Wednesday, and I'll speak for you again very soon. Peace.